You know you're a real wrestling fan when someone says War Games, and your brain immediately goes the match beyond. Way before there was a Hell in a Cell, or even an Elimination Chamber. We're talking 2 rings, 1 cage, no escape, and a match that doesn't even technically start until everyone's inside, and the chaos is already out of control. And if you grew up in the early 90s, this match felt illegal. It felt dangerous. It felt like something Turner Broadcasting probably shouldn't have allowed on television. We're rewinding the clock 35 years to WCW WrestleWar 1991, a show that honestly is remembered for the one thing, and one thing only. A War Games match so good, so violent, so perfectly paced that it still gets talked about 3.5 decades later. This isn't just a nostalgia trip. This is remembered of when wrestling felt real, when the cage was the weapon. It's WrestleWar 91.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Welcome to and new. Oh yeah!
It's going to be the biggest battleground in the history of our sport.
As God is my witness, he is broken in half.
But I'm better than you,
And you know it. You want some? Come get some.
Acknowledge me.
The irresistible force meeting the immovable object.
Welcome, wrestling fans, to the Wrestling Universe Channel's podcast, where pro wrestling fans discuss what we love, pro wrestling. So as always, if it's your first time listening in, we, the Wrestling Universe Channel, would like to thank you for taking the time to listen. And if you have returned, we want to give you a special shout out of thanks for sticking around the Wrestling Universe Channel. We invite you to follow us on YouTube and Spotify. Links below.
After months of tension, let the War Games begin. First time, live on pay-per-view. Sunday night, February 24th. An explosive eruption. WrestleWar 91. 2 rings enclosed in a steel cage. 2 teams battle. Each submission or surrender. There's no escape. We've declared war! Witness World Championship Wrestling superstars Sting and Lex Luger. The true grit of the Steiner brothers. The aerial assault of Flying Brian. And the Horseman Ride. I want you at WrestleWar 90. WrestleWar 91 featuring War Games. Live only on pay-per-view.
For 3 years, February has meant only one thing to the fans and superstars of World Championship Wrestling. It has meant WrestleWar. And this year, this annual event goes west to the arid sun country of Phoenix, Arizona, where tonight a capacity crowd at Memorial Coliseum and millions of fans worldwide exclusively on pay-per-view are set for World Championship Wrestling at its best. It's time for WrestleWar! And you are looking live, a capacity crowd on hand. Hi everybody, welcome to WrestleWar!
What's up, wrestling fans, and welcome back to the Wrestling Universe Channel's podcast, where we're celebrating the 35th anniversary of World Championship Wrestling's WrestleWar 1991, a pay-per-view that lives forever in wrestling history thanks to one unforgettable match, War Games. And I want to be honest right out of the gate, I did not see this event live when it originally aired. Back in 1991, I was a pure World Wrestling Federation kid. I was a Hulkamaniac, and living up in the Northeast as a kid, WCW at this time didn't exist in my world. It wasn't until several years later when I really started digging into wrestling history that I finally sat down and watched WrestleWar 91. And that War Games match? It instantly became, and still is, in my top 3 of War Games matches that I rewatch consistently. To understand why WrestleWar 91 works so well, you have to understand where World Championship Wrestling was in early 1991. This was a company at a crossroads. The late 80s boom had cooled. Ric Flair was still the centerpiece, but cracks were starting to show behind the scenes. Jim Crockett Promotions was long gone. Turner Broadcasting was fully in control, and WCW was trying to figure out what it wanted to be without becoming WWF light. Meanwhile, World Wrestling Federation was riding high off its crazy Gulf War storyline leading into WrestleMania 7 and the larger-than-life presentation. WCW's answer wasn't cartoon characters. World Championship Wrestling leaned into realism, violence, and faction warfare. Enter War Games. This match wasn't about a title. It wasn't about rankings. It was about grudges, alliances, and settling things in the most brutal way possible. By 1991, War Games already had a legacy. Fans knew what it meant. When World Championship Wrestling announced another War Games match, expectations weren't just high, they were dangerously high. Let's take a peek behind the mysterious curtain on what drama, situations, politics, everything hush-hush that only the dirt sheet somehow got a hold of. It's time to go behind the curtain. From the February 4th, 1991 Wrestling Observer newsletter, Mike Rotundo walked out of WCW before a TV taping because they only offered him a 6-month contract. From the February 11th, 1991 Wrestling Observer newsletter, Clash of the Champions 14 Dixie Dynamite, which was looking to be the best show on paper in years. Lex Luger and Sting took on Doom, Anderson and Wyndham taking on the Youngbloods, and Scott Steiner trying to capture gold against Ric Flair. And fans, this will be a future episode for this podcast, guaranteed. Back to the newsletter. So, that didn't work out. Dave Meltzer continues, the problem is that Dusty Rhodes is all over the show as booker and doing color commentary. From the February 18th Wrestling Observer newsletter, Scott Steiner's worth has dropped greatly after the Clash match was kind of a bomb, and he just wants to work tags anyway. So now the plan is for Dusty to push Brian Pilman as his next big star. Continuing on with one more Wrestling Observer newsletter from February 25th. On February 18th, in one of the most famous title changes in history, the Steiner brothers won the WCW World Tag Team titles from the Freebirds. Now, for the readers who weren't around at this time, may be wondering when the Freebirds won the titles from Doom. And the answer is that they wouldn't actually win them for another 3 days at the pay-per-view. This pay-per-view, WrestleWar. So the fabulous Freebirds have the first ever title reign into negative numbers. Oliver Humperdinck debuted at the tapings and will manage the fabulous Freebirds as Big Daddy Dink, playing a WCW version of Lou Albano. Now let's dive into the business side of this event, where we talk revenue, attendance, and impact, basically where the numbers tell the story. The location for this event? The Arizona Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Phoenix, Arizona. Dave Meltzer reported that this show was attended by about 6,800 fans, with only 4,300 paying for tickets for a live gate of $53,000. Meltzer also reported that the pay-per-view was purchased in between 140,000 to 170,000 homes, for a gross of $2.8 to $3.4 million. All right, wrestling fans, the moment has come where we dive in and unpack this event's match card. And let's take a moment to highlight this rundown the only way possible, with a little assistance from a voice of this time period.
Our opening contest at WrestleWar 91 is for the WCW World Six-Man Tag Team Championship match. The champions, the Junkyard Dog, Ricky Morton, and Tommy Rich square off against State Patrol and Big Cat. The match starts with Big Cat and Junkyard Dog, two big guys standing in the middle of the ring throwing shots, just slugging it out. JYD gets the better of it early, rocking Cat with those signature headbutts. Then we shift gears when Ricky Morton gets involved. And this is where the match actually picks up. Morton comes in and immediately increases the tempo. Hip tosses, arm drags, working the arm. Tommy Rich gets his turn, keeps things basic with a body slam, another arm drag, arm bar. It's a very traditional Southern tag structure so far. Baby faces isolating, working holds, staying fundamentally sound. Eventually the heels take control, and this is where the match settles into its real rhythm. Later on in the match, there's a nice little bulldog spot that gets two. Then a double slam into stereo elbows. Again, solid old school heel teamwork. Big Cat comes in with a huge backbreaker that looks legitimately painful. Then Big Cat baits Tommy Rich into entering the ring without a tag. The referee gets distracted, and Morton just gets mauled in the corner. Then comes the hot tag tease. Parker charges and misses. Morton finally creates space, and here comes Junkyard Dog. Headbutts for everybody. The dog drops the thump on Parker and goes for the cover, but Big Cat breaks it up. Then, in kind of a chaotic finish, Morton slides back in and covers Parker almost out of nowhere to score the win at 9:54. Dave Meltzer rates this match by giving it 2.5 stars. Next up, we've got Bobby Eaton taking on Brad Armstrong. Bobby Eaton attacks from behind to start the match. This pretty much sets the tone, because for most of this match, Eaton wrestles like a heel, and a really good one. There's a great spot where Eaton tries to escape to the outside, but Brad runs him into the post and drags him right back in to keep working the arm. Then you get this really cool sequence where Brad basically walks up Eaton's shoulders in the corner and takes him down again. It's one of those athletic Armstrong moments that reminds you how smooth he was. Later on, they start trading shots. Eaton rakes the eyes. He's wrestling full heel here. Brad finally makes his comeback after Eaton misses a blind charge. Dropkick connects. He hits the leg sweep, and it gets two because Eaton's in the ropes. And then Brad does the classic mistake. He puts his head down coming out of the corner. You can feel it coming. Alabama Jam. The match is over at 12 minutes and 50 seconds. Dave Meltzer rates this match between Eaton and Armstrong with 3.25 stars. Our third match of this event, Miss A and Miki Honda taking on Itsuki Yamasaki and Mami Kitamura, and this thing is just 6 minutes of controlled chaos. Miss A gets jumped early, but immediately fires back with some absolutely vicious kicks. Once Honda gets in, it's arm drags and a quick slam, but the pace never slows down. Butterfly suplex, backdrop suplex, small packages, bulldog, gut wrench. It's just move, counter, and then Miss A really starts throwing bombs. Northern Lights suplex for two, then a backdrop driver that looks straight out of a Steiner Brothers match, just brutal. They start trading cradles, double suplexes, missile drop kicks, and before you can even process it, Yamasaki sneaks in with a sunset flip, gets a little assist, and steals the pin at 6:51. Dave Meltzer rates this match by giving it 3.5 stars. Next up on the WrestleWar 91 card is Buddy Landel versus Dustin Rhodes. Dustin's coming off a loss at the Royal Rumble, and WCW immediately puts him in a featured spot here. Dustin starts strong with a backdrop, chases Landel into the corner, and throws elbows and a lariat for a quick two. He works the arm, but Landel slows things down, letting Dustin crash shoulder first into the post on a missed charge. From there, Buddy takes over with rope choking, a slam, and eventually a sleeper. And honestly, you can tell both guys are kind of feeling their way through the match. There are a few awkward moments, missed timing, and some hesitation. Dustin fights out, dumps Landel to the floor, stumbles back in, hits a bulldog, and that's it at 6:30. Dave Meltzer rates this match with 2.25 stars. Next up, the Royal Family, Jack Victory and Rip Morgan, against the Young Pistols. The Pistols at least bring energy, chasing them out of the ring right away. Then, a weird occurrence happens. The lights go out during the match. They literally have to fire up a spotlight to keep the match going while production sorts itself out. Once things settle, it's basic tag wrestling. Pistols double team, clear the ring again. Victory and Morgan slow it down, isolate Tracy Smothers, and grind him down with headlocks, elbows, and a bear hug that just drags the match. There's a spine buster, a lot of corner work, and finally the Pistols catch them trying a double suplex. Brad Armstrong drop kicks both guys. Tracy lands on Morgan, and that's the pin at 12 minutes. Dave Meltzer rates this match by giving it 1.25 stars. Then we get a no DQ match between Terry Taylor and Tom Zenk. Taylor tries to steal it early with cheap shots, but all that does is fire Zenk up and send Taylor scrambling to the floor for advice from Alexandra York and her computer. Back in the ring, Zenk controls things with headlocks and mat work, which sends Taylor right back outside for more strategizing. Eventually, Taylor fights back with a headbutt and a backdrop suplex, and things spill to the floor again, where Taylor uses a TV cable to choke Zenk. Back inside, Taylor pokes the eye, hits a backbreaker, drops a knee, and works the corner, but Zenk rallies with a neck breaker, a super kick, and a power slam, only to get cut off every time by rope breaks or interference. Zenk goes up for the flying body press, Alexandra York distracts the ref, and Taylor steals it with a roll-up and a handful of tights at 10:48. Dave Meltzer rates this match by giving it 3.5 stars. Then it's Stan Hansen versus Big Van Vader in a return grudge match, and this is exactly what you think it's going to be, a bar fight in wrestling form. Vader blasts Hansen with a clothesline right out of the corner, follows with a splash and an elbow for two, then slows it with a chinlock. They spill to the floor and just start clubbing each other. No finesse, just fists, railing shots, whatever's available. Back in, Hansen fires back with a back suplex and an elbow, but it doesn't stay contained for long. They're back outside. Vader drops Hansen on the railing, throws another elbow, and it's pure chaos. Hansen yanks Vader into the steps. They slug it out again inside. The referee gets wiped out in the middle of it, and that's it. Double DQ at 6:30. Dave Meltzer rates this grudge match with 2 3/4 stars. Next up is the WCW US title match with Lex Luger defending against Dan Spivey. Spivey jumps Luger early, pounds on him in the corner, but Lex fires back with backdrops and clotheslines. The big moment comes when Luger misses a body press and actually lands in the other ring. Spivey suplexes him back and hits a tombstone piledriver that somehow only gets 2. From there, Spivey controls most of the match. Neckbreakers, DDT, chinlocks, stiff kicks, even a flying elbow, and everything feels heavy. He just keeps grinding Lex down and cutting off every comeback. When Luger finally starts to rally, the crowd absolutely comes alive, but Spivey shuts it down with a belly-to-belly and more control work. They tease the rack, tease the finish, and then it turns into a scramble. They trade clotheslines, slug it out on their knees, crash into each other again, and out of nowhere, Luger rolls through a slam attempt into a cradle and steals the pin at 12 minutes and 56 seconds to retain. After the U.S. title match, Nikita Koloff and Grizzly Smith come out to present Lex Luger with the new championship belt, and it's a trap. Nikita blasts Luger in the head with the belt and officially declares that he's back, ready to tear through WCW again after Luger took the U.S. title from him back in 1987. Huge angle, big reaction, and instantly reestablishes Koloff as a threat. Dave Meltzer rates this U.S. title match with 3 3/4 stars. WCW WrestleWar 91 moves on to the WCW World Tag Team titles, with Doom defending against the fabulous Freebirds. The Freebirds are somehow challenging for belts they already lost to the Steiners at a TV taping weeks earlier, meaning they technically have a negative title reign. Meanwhile, Doom is absolutely in their prime, which makes what happens next even worse in hindsight. The match itself is quick and chaotic. Simmons and Reed dominate early, Doom double teams Garvin, and Simmons looks like a monster with spine busters and power moves. But things break down. Teddy Long slides Reed a foreign object, and Reed accidentally nails Simmons instead. Garvin falls on top. The Freebirds steal the win and the titles at 7 minutes, and immediately after Reed and Teddy Long turn on Ron Simmons, officially ending Doom, Dave Meltzer rates this World Tag Team title match by giving it 2 1/4 stars. We come to the 10th and final match, the main event, War Games between the teams of Ric Flair, Sid Vicious, Barry Windham, and Larry Zbyszko versus Brian Pillman, Sting, Rick Steiner, and Scott Steiner. War Games match is built around one central idea: survival through escalation. Before the cage even comes down, the story is already set. Brian Pillman's shoulder is taped up from the Horseman attack shown in the pre-match video, and that injury becomes the spine of the entire match. Everything funnels back to it. Pillman starts against Barry Windham and immediately wrestles like a man trying to prove something. Clotheslines, drop kicks, constant movement. He's not trying to outmuscle Windham. He's trying to overwhelm him. The head fake into the middle rope drop kick is classic Pillman. Confidence bordering on recklessness. The low blow slows Windham, but Pillman keeps pressing, and when Barry gets raked into the cage and busted open, you feel the Horseman losing control of the opening stretch. That's important, because War Games is about who dictates the pace, not who hits harder. The Nature Boy Ric Flair comes in next, and the tone changes instantly. Flair doesn't rush. He chops, corners Pillman, and targets the shoulder. The Horsemen isolate Pillman just long enough to remind you what the numbers game looks like, and they ram that injured shoulder into the cage to swing momentum back. Sting's entry is the release valve. Sting doesn't sell the chops. He doesn't slow down. He clears space with clotheslines and bulldogs, and for the first time, the Horsemen look overwhelmed. Larry Zbyszko enters to restore balance, but even then, Sting dives across both rings to keep pressure on. The match starts layering injuries here. Windham's leg, Pillman's shoulder, Flair's face gets raked open. The cage isn't just a structure, it's the weapon doing the long-term damage. Rick Steiner comes in and the violence spikes. Steiner lines everywhere. Flair's busted open, and suddenly bodies are piling up. But chaos works both ways. Pillman ends up stuck in the Tree of Woe. Sting is bleeding, and the babyfaces are no longer fully in control. Then Sid enters, and this is where the match shifts from violent to dangerous. Sid's role is brute force, no nuance, just power and intimidation. He holds guys in place for cheap shots, throws people into the cage, and the Horsemen regain dominance through sheer size and strength. Scott Steiner evens the teams, submissions are now legal, and the match feels like it's entering the home stretch. There's an incredible visual moment where multiple figure fours are locked in at once. A perfect encapsulation of wargames psychology. Everyone's hurt, everyone's trapped, no escape, but then the wheels come off. This is where we come to the match of the infamous moment between Sid Vicious and Flying Brian. Sid tries to powerbomb Pilman, and this is the turning point, and not just in the match, but in its legacy. Sid can't get Pilman up clean. Pillman's feet hit the top of the cage. Sid drops him directly on the back of his head, legitimately knocking him unconscious. Then, incredibly, he does it again. This isn't storyline injury. This is real. The match has to end on the fly. Elegante comes out, surrenders the match on Pillman's behalf, and the Horsemen are awarded the win at 22 minutes and 5 seconds. Dave Meltzer rated this War Games match with the highest rating by giving it an astounding 5 stars.
And fans, we want to take a moment to actually thank ElevenLabs. If you're looking to create a lifelike audio, with ElevenLabs AI voice generator, you can produce the most realistic speech with ease. Whether it's for audiobooks, video voiceovers, commercials, or any project that needs human-like narration, ElevenLabs has got you covered. ElevenLabs offers 32 languages. Their platform is perfect for all your audio needs. Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description below to explore more about ElevenLabs today. All right, wrestling fans, get your erasers out. It's time for us to be the bookers for this event. It's a segment of the show that really starts making all us wrestling fans a fantasy booker. Here are some what-if scenarios and or ideas about this event for many of you to ponder and discuss. What if Doom didn't break up? Doom breaking up is one of those decisions that makes sense on paper and absolutely collapses in practice. At this point in WCW, Doom was one of the most dominant, credible tag teams in the company. They looked legitimate. They worked stiff, and they felt like a threat to anyone. The Steiner brothers, the Fabulous Freebirds, the Road Warriors, it didn't matter. And yet they were sacrificed for a Ron Simmons singles push that simply wasn't ready. Now, to be clear, Ron Simmons eventually becomes a major star. First black WCW World Heavyweight Champion, a historic moment, but this was not the right time, and Doom was not the team to dismantle to get there. If Doom stays together, WCW has a power tag team that could have anchored the division through the early 90s. They could have carried feuds with the Steiner brothers, elevated young stars, and provided stability in the division that WCW constantly undermined with short reigns and rush changes. Instead, the breakup does damage in every direction. Ron Simmons flounders in a singles role without the momentum of character clarity needed to sustain it. Butch Reed fades even faster. Teddy Long, one of those best managers WCW had, loses his most effective act, and the tag division loses one of the most believable champions. The bigger what if is this. What if WCW let Doom peak first before pulling the trigger? Giving Ron Simmons another year in a dominant tag role. Let the audience demand the singles run instead of forcing it. When the split finally happens, it feels earned, not abrupt. Because as history showed, breaking up Doom didn't create a star, it delayed one and quietly killed a great tag team in the process. What if Elegante didn't come out to surrender War Games? War Games was unquestionably the highlight of the show, but the finish has always felt off. Elegante walking out and surrendering on Brian Pilman's behalf is one of those endings that makes sense logistically, but not emotionally. It solved a real problem. Pilman was legitimately hurt, but it undercut the intensity the match had spent 20 plus minutes building. So let's play it out, shall we? If the Horsemen were still meant to win War Games, and historically that was the plan, there were cleaner ways to get there without breaking the illusion. The most logical option would have been Pilman being rendered unconscious and one of his teammates surrendering for him. Rick or Scott Steiner or even Sting calling it off to protect Pilman fits the story much better. War Games has always been about survival, not pride. And seeing a teammate forced to admit defeat to save another guy adds emotional weight instead of confusion. Another option is simply brutality. Sid Vicious knocking Brian Pilman out, the Horseman isolating him, and Flair slapping on the figure 4 while Pilman can't respond. The referee checks him, sees he's out, and calls for the bell. It keeps the finish inside the cage, keeps the danger believable, and doesn't require any outside character who wasn't a part of the story. Because that's the real issue with El Gigante. He wasn't a part of this feud. The match was about the Horsemen versus WCW's future, Brian Pilman, Sting, and the Steiner brothers. Introducing El Gigante at the last possible second shifts focus away from the story everyone was invested in and turns a legendary match into a footnote. The irony is that the injury forced an improv finish, but WCW still had enough pieces inside the cage to make it feel organic. The fact that they didn't is why this War Games is remembered as both incredible and also frustrating. And what were the standouts for this event? What made the highlight reels and moments as well as the botches, the mistakes, the lookaways? Here are some from this event. Match of the night is the War Games match itself. There's no debate. Many of the matches did well, don't get us wrong. Well, the Young Pistols' victory may be the only failure, but people came for War Games, and it truly delivered. But at the same time, it also created one of the most memorable botches in pro wrestling history, with Sid powerbombing Flying Brian twice in a smaller cage. And what about the pop of the night? What got fans overly excited, got them on their feet, caused pandemonium? Let's take a listen, shall we?
Rick Steiner starting the figure 4 on Wendell. Brian now turning the table on Big Sid Vicious.
Right here too now, figure 4, right here, look at this.
They're going to try to break some legs here. It's submission or surrender.
He's
The
breaking, baby.
referees, do you hear anybody say it? Submit or surrender.
Yeah.
Arn Anderson wants in, but he's being restrained.
Brother, this place is a madhouse.
35 years later, WrestleWar 91 is remembered for one reason, and that's okay, because sometimes one match is enough. This War Games bout represents everything World Championship Wrestling did right when it trusted its talent, trusted its audience, and didn't overthink the moment. Personally for me, discovering it years after the fact only made it better. No nostalgia goggles, no childhood bias, just great wrestling. If you've ever seen WrestleWar 1991, or if it's been a while, do yourself a favor and revisit it. Because some matches don't age, they endure. As always, we appreciate and thank you all for taking the time to be a part of our episode here on the Wrestling Universe channel. Please let us know how we did, or if you have anything you would like to contribute to this episode, we would love to hear your feedback. And you know the drill. Follow us on all of our social platforms, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify, and we look forward to the next episode. So long, wrestling fans.